We're ready to get started. We got our supplies, we've got our workspace, we've got everything set up, so we're ready to go. Here's my reference so I can easily look up and see it. I've got my canvas down here. I've also got my pencil. I'm using an H hardness for this one. It's pretty light and it is sharpened, believe it or not, but it's kind of got like a little bit of a blunt tip, so I'm going to be careful with that. I don't want it too pointy as to puncture my canvas, but this should work. I've also got my kneaded eraser here ready to go for if I have an oops moment. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The main focus of this piece is going to be the castle, but we have a really nice landscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sketching out placement just to kind of plan ahead and think about where are things going to be located on the canvas before I start painting. Now, you're welcome to go ahead and go freehand as far as, start painting without the sketch. It's not required. It's something that I like to do. So if you're feeling brave and you want to go ahead and start painting without sketching it out, totally cool. Go ahead and do that, whatever makes you feel comfortable. So here we go. I've got kind of like a plan going. Now, right now, the way I have my phone oriented, I don't have this piece here chopped off. So looking at the size and shape of my canvas, I know I'm probably going to lose this edge here, most likely. But let's see what happens. So I'm going to start with some of the main focal points here. The castle is my main subject, and my castle placement, I'm kind of thinking I want it to end right about here, so I'm marking that spot for the left side of it, and then I'm thinking the right side, I want that to end right about here. Looking at my reference, the castle is only going up to about 3/4 of the way up the page. So I'm going to plan that out here, put a parameter, I would say right about here for the top parts. And of course, when I say top parts, I'm talking about like this area. So I've got my parameters set for the most part for the castle part. I'm going to go ahead and start sketching that out. Again, I know I'm losing like this part here, most likely. So I'm taking the castle further over to the right than it is there. Okay. Now, going up to the castle, I've got a little bit of rock work in here, just giving it kind of like an edge. And then it's going to go up. And the technique I'm using, there's two main ways that people start sketching. Some folks do the super confident, okay, I'm doing a line, without going back over it. It depends on what I'm doing, but I usually do kind of go back and forth. So you'll notice that. All right, I know that my edge of my castle on the right side is going to kind of taper off into a little platform here. And then I'm still watching my parameters, but it's more to the left, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make my slope. And first time is not always a charm. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit beyond my parameters, and that's okay. That's okay. But first time is not always a charm. Sometimes you got to do it a couple times to get your orientation and your sizing where you'd like it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and there's like a little ridge up there. Measuring from side to side here on either side of this. So I'm kind of making sure that makes sense. All right, there we are. So next I'm going down on the other side of this slope. Some folks, when it comes to doing buildings, will use like a protractor or a ruler for those super straight lines. When it comes to that with me, it just depends on what I'm doing. For this, I do have some nice sharp straight lines, but they're not quite as intense, if you will, or quite as dramatic as some other types of buildings. This is an older castle, so we do have some softer lines going. So I've got a little deviation here from this point to the top of the roof, and I'm coming over and I notice, ooh, my parameter is in the way. So I'm flipping my pencil over, erasing that line there. And you gotta be careful with erasers. I do use kneaded erasers just because they're a little softer on the media. You don't want to puncture your canvas or anything like that, or create like a big mess that's hard to hide. So I've got a little bit of depth of field going. So this is kind of neat. Like, this is a straight line that doesn't have much of a slant, like in the reference photo. But for depth of field, that's one of the ways that you can create that, is having a little bit of a slant going. All right, I'm going to do the back side of my roof there. This is just one small part of the castle, and then I'm noticing I want to kind of, these two, looking at the reference photo, we have a little bit of a slant between this line and this line. So I'm going to try to make sure I'm creating that, which means I'm going to take it down a little further. There we go. Okay, so there's a little oops. They happen. There we go. Nice light erase. Most of the paint markers are going to cover up my pencil marks. That said, it's not always reliable depending on what color is going there. So do the best you can as far as like erasing goes. But also, most of the time it's going to cover it up. So as you can see, I am going to transcend my limit here, because what I was just sketching out is that first little building, first little part of the structure. So with planning, sometimes you have to meet your piece where it is. And as it turns out, I do kind of want my castle to be a little bigger, right? So I can get some higher detail in there. All right, I've got a little structure here that I'm not 100% sure about. So I'm going to come back to that if I need to. And I'm extending my parameters to, let's see how that building's going to go. All right, we have another slant here. It's not quite going up to the top. So keep in mind, folks, my painting isn't exactly going to look like my reference photo. It's going to be my rendition or interpretation of it, and if that's the same for you, that's totally okay. Alright, so I've got this side of the roof going here. I go up a little bit because now I'm starting to have some shape coming in. And I'm not going to get into shadows or highlights too much, just because I'm really wanting to get just a little sketch up to fill in. It's just giving me like my boundaries, if you will. Alright, so this roof goes here. I don't quite like that line there, so I'm taking it in. Whoop. Did forget to mention, if you're using your phone for your reference, make sure to set the sleep mode for a little longer so you don't have to keep hitting it like I am. Like, no, don't go to sleep, phone, I need you. Alright, so there we go. Hitting my little, this looks like a chimney on this one. This is going to be a really cool castle. It's definitely going to be something different that, you know, from other pieces I've worked on. And that's why sometimes I'll pick things on purpose like that. Alright, so I'm going to my edge. And I really do want some of this landscape in the background. It looks like our water is going to go up to here. And what some folks will do, if you have like different parts of a landscape, they'll label it. Like some people will write, like, for example, you could write water here, so you know, like, oh, this is where the water is. I'm not going to do that with this piece just because I feel like that's more for me to erase later, but you're welcome to label it if that helps you, like, keep that reference. We've got some trees coming up in here. All right, I'm not going to do my cloud, so to speak. I kind of want to make sure I'm getting those layers in the rock work there. The cloud I'm going to freehand. That's completely up to you whether or not you're comfortable. But yeah, this cloud, I think freehand would be better because those lighter colors are hard to cover the pencil. All right, so there we go. We've got this piece here. And I come around from the coast of the land formation. And that's going to take me to right about here where there's a bridge going. All right, so I've got the top layer. If you are left-handed, this is kind of the point where you're going to start noticing some pencil on the side of your hand potentially. I wasn't just going only right to left because I'm coming back in and working on this here. Okay, so there we go. We've got that. I've got the edge of my castle. This is where I'm picking up. So there's kind of like a land formation that goes this way. And then there's a little bit of some rock work going in to the edge of where this comes up here. All right, so there's my reference. All right, and then I've got my little structure going. I take it down to about here. Now, if you do use a different style to sketch than I do, that's totally cool. No sweat. Whatever works best for you. And then I do see a little side here in this castle. It comes out a little bit and goes down here. Again, I'm not going to get too detailed, but I'm going to line up my windows. So I've got like, just zooming in a little bit. I think I might have to touch on those windows just to place this out. And so this line here, I've got like some rock work coming up and in. It's actually going to be a little longer. There we go. Little blocks there. Oop, sorry. Okay, there we are. A little longer. This is going to be some detail work in here. I can tell you right now. I can see this with the paint. Okay. So there we are. I'm going to save my windows for a little later. And then I've got this kind of working around the edge. So go in here. There's different levels. And I'm going to kind of make sure my little heads are lined up. There we are. Okay, and then we've got like another little steeple there. Okay, and then let's see, we've got here. And this is like an edge. I think I'm gonna have to bring this up a little more. There we go. So I've got my basic shape there. And then next to this, see, that's an upper part. Right about here, I've got this other little structure going. All right, And I feel like actually I realized I made that a little too low. Let's try that again. Okay. I'll bring that up. So I want this part of the building to come to about here. Make sure that lines up, and it's going to have to stop right about here. Okay, that makes sense. I think I'm starting to drift a little bit there. Just noticed. Okay, so we're doing this structure here. It's not going to exactly line up like the picture, but that's okay. We do have quite a few ornate little structures in this castle. Alright, I know I'm going here. That was my old parameter. Don't need that anymore because I transcended it. Alright, we've got these pieces here. And then I'm going back to my land. I think my castle is going to end up being a little different shape than the one in my reference. So this is a little border wall here leading up. Okay, and then this is a little more organic for the slope. I might bring my zoom out a little bit so I can see. So my style of sketching things out, in my opinion, I guess, is like not super detailed. It's only giving me those borders. I'm saving my detail for after I get some paint down. Again, you're welcome to, if that makes you uncomfortable, you're welcome to do more detail, but keep in mind we do want to get paint over where this pencil is. It's just a guide. Alright, so there's my land coming in. I feel like this structure is a little off. Oh wait, it does branch out a bit. Okay, so like this. Ooh, that is not straight. There we go. Okay. Alright, so that gives you an idea of where I'm headed here. I'm also not going to do too much sketching for the foreground pieces. If you notice, I'm going for mostly my subject and then looking at the background. So like these trees, I'm going to be putting in on top of things, right? Because I'm going to need my water, I'm going to need my clouds first with paint. Then I'm going to go back and get these trees on top of that. I've got my basic parameters sketched out. And something I like to do at this point, just to make sure my sizes are on point, is I'll take a small photo with my phone and see how it looks on the smaller screen. This is so I can see if there are any major flaws or anything like that that I'm not quite happy with before I start to get too involved. Because once that paint starts flowing, you know, it could get a little tricky from there. So I do recommend doing so. You'd be amazed how many flaws you can see in a photo compared to like real life up in your face, right? And that's something I like to tell people too, just a heads up. There may be some points where you're starting to work on your painting and you feel like, ooh, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I can finish. And you know, might start to feel some doubt in yourself. Just a word of encouragement. I go through that on every piece. It's just part of who I am. So if you start to experience that, don't fret. Just keep going. If you need to take breaks, that's totally fine. But even if you just do little increments, if you're feeling discouraged at any point in the process, take some little breaks away from it. You know, if you think about it, what you're working on is usually pretty close to your face, and once you step away for a little while, you can get some other perspective on it.